Hey, how's it going, guys? So I'm going to introduce my new series. It's going to be called The Basics. And what we're going to be touching on is just the basic things in some games, mostly RTS games, that will help you start off as a new player and start to understand the game and get it a little bit more competitive if you want, or just get better at slapping around that computer or AI. So today we're going to be talking about hotkeys and control groups. So to get there, you can find it in the main menu. So we'll actually go back there. So when you load in your game, you're going to see this little settings menu down here. And this is going to be all your game settings. And today we're going to be focusing on controls. We're going to touch on camera as well, just to show you guys the difference in one setting. And I found it very helpful because it was annoying before. So let's go ahead and take a look at the hotkeys. So Age of Empires 4 at the moment uses grid keys. So in order to build, say, like a villager or to make like a building in the first age, you're going to have to hit Q first. And it's going to correlate to all these other numbers or letters. And we'll take a look at that in game. And then we're going to take a look here at the common keys. So, some things to look at, in my opinion, that I feel like a lot of new players could really benefit from. Just say if they have like a lot of idle military or a lot of idle villagers. We're going to come all the way down here to unit management. And what we can find here is select all idle villagers. So I have mine control plus period because I have period as my regular idle or idle villager hotkey. So it's easiest if I just know that like I hit control and period for to select all my idle villagers. I made the mistake of accidentally making it this. So one game I selected all of my villagers and then sent them to one resource, and it was quite the nightmare, I must admit. So I would suggest making this a hotkey that you'll remember, because starting off there's a lot going on and you want to make sure that all your villagers are working. And this is going to be one of the easiest ways to select all those idle vills and get them on resources to start gathering. Um, the next important one I want to point out is select all idle military units. So I have my regular like find one idle military unit, comma. So it's going to be the same exact thing as select idle villager. So I'm going to do control. So I'm going to hold control and then hit comma. And then it's going to be able to find all of my idle military so I can send them to the fight. And again, same thing as a villager. It just helps out when you have a lot going on. All these other hotkeys I'm not really going to go through because I feel like as a starting player, you're not going to utilize them too much. One I would focus on again would be cycle through town centers. Just if you're booming, you want to make sure that you can make villagers from all those town centers constantly. And then the last one we're going to talk about is this one right down here. So sometimes when you get attacked, you have to garrison all your villagers. And instead of doing like a two-step process on sending them back to work, we're going to go ahead and use, I use N just because that's what I use in other previous games. But I found that this is kind of buggy for me and they don't really go back to work. So uh, you feel free to change this one if you want, or just keep it as is. I wouldn't stress about it too much. So next we're going to get into some control groups. So if you're not familiar, you can select, say you have, make 3 cavalry, and you want to be able to control all 3 cavalry at the same time. You're going to want to highlight all of those units and hit control 1, and say whenever you tap 1, it's going to take you back to those cavalry. And when we get in game, we'll show you guys that. So this section is really just going over on those control groups and then some final hotkeys down below. So let's go ahead and we'll start a game and we'll show you guys these basic hotkeys. So you can actually start a game versus no AI. So we're going to do that. So the first thing that we're going to see is the HUD hotkeys. So once we load in, we'll hit play. So I'm going to select my villager. So as I said, for all of these economic buildings, with the exception of a few things, we're going to have to hit Q first. And then you'll be able to hit Q again to build a house, W, and so on and so forth. So if we hit escape and go back to our hotkeys, we will see that it correlates to this grid right here. So if you use different keys in other RTS games, I would maybe suggest changing them. So if you change this one to C, everything that was previously made with Q will be made with C, and so on and so forth for all these different keys. So you can customize it to your liking. I think they might make it more customizable in the future. So, but just starting off, keep that in mind. You will have to double tap things to make it. It can be pretty difficult and might be a little APM intensive. So let's go back into our game. And as you see, whenever I hit H, it takes me to my town center, and then I have to hit Q to make a Ville. And then, like I said, if you wanted to change that Q to a C, you'd have to hit C to make a Ville. Alright, so let's go ahead and show you guys the period hotkey. So whenever I hit period once, it just selects one idle villager. But when I hit control period, it's going to select all those villas, and I'll be able to send them to whatever resource I want. Typically, if you have a bunch of villas, you might need to send them to different ones just so you aren't overgathering. And it's going to be the same exact thing with my scout here. Let me go ahead and make a few scouts just to show you guys. But whenever I hit comma, that scout is going to be found. So we'll just give this about 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Uh-oh. Thought it was housed. Alright, so now that I have 2 military units, they're both idle. I hit comma to find them, and then I'll hit control comma to get both of them. And then for the example that I used earlier for making the control groups, you can say highlight them like this by dragging, hit control 1, and then you can send them both all over the map. And feel free again to use whatever number you might be most comfortable with. And to find them or like get up to them, you have to double tap that number that you have set. You can do the same thing with any buildings. I typically make my town center 1 just because I have everything in my base and I like to be able to come back and just easily click my eco buildings. One last thing I want to touch on is the camera. So as you see here, I'm like locked into place. I have to use my mouse keys to move around, or my arrow keys, and I can't move around on the map with my mouse. So in order to change this, if you accidentally turn it on, we have to go to the camera setting and we have to turn screen edge panning off. And I think this one is also started on, and I'll show you guys how this is kind of annoying, at least for me. So we'll go back in and we'll see that I'm able to move now once I turn that the setting off. But if you notice, my screen is a little delayed, like it moves a little bit when I take my mouse off. And one way to fix that is going back into our settings at our camera and turn enable pan acceleration off. So this is going to give you much more snappier gameplay, and I prefer that for the most part. I don't like moving my cursor and then the screen moving a little bit more. So here we see it just stops immediately. And you might prefer the other way, or you might prefer this way. I just know it took me a second to figure out which was which, and I really enjoy this one. So that's it for me on this The Basics, Hotkeys, and Control Groups with a little other special things in there for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you want to see for the next video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.